Welcome to the ArmChair GM podcast. I'm Chris, and that's Dylan. The Flames come up huge with a big win in the Big Apple after a rough outing in Toronto. Vladar is still showing that he's more than a capable backup. How happy is everyone with these lineup changes? Also, officiating. Let's get into it. Welcome to the ArmChair GM podcast.
Well, the Flames are 2 points out of a playoff spot and only a couple points out of a top 10 pick as well. So no direction. You really have no idea where they're going. But I'll tell you that the Rangers game was pretty fucking fun to watch.
It was. Yeah, and we needed that after the outing in Toronto. That was subpar at best across the board.
Yeah, usually when I listen to games on the radio, like I did with the Toronto game, I'll come home and I'll watch the highlights or whatever. I'll be honest, they just skipped that. I had it sounded so bad that I just didn't have any desire to watch that. And like sometimes I'll even come home and I'll watch the full game. But this time I was just like, you know what? That sounded brutal. I don't want to put myself through that.
Yeah, you saved yourself a lot of frustration. I'm not going to lie. It's games like that you really, really appreciate Backlund as a player. Like,
absolutely.
not saying he would have been the difference and we would have won the game if he was there, but the defense would have looked way different. Way different. Like it was uncanny, the difference, like watching these guys play. It was like all forwards forgot how to play defense entirely. It was brutal to watch.
Yeah, like what were we 0 for 3 on the PK? That's not Flames hockey. Like the PK may not be great this year, but that's one place you really notice Backlund, breaking up passes, especially D-to-D passes and passes from the D to forwards in their offensive zone on the PK. Backlund just clears the puck all the time or manages to knock a puck away and allow Wolf of Vladar to get over before the puck gets there because Backlund's just caused enough interference with the puck or the player, and I found even against the Rangers where the Flames won and honestly looked really good, I still think the Flames missed Backlund a little bit, They get hemmed in every once in a while. Not so much against the Rangers, but the Rangers, quite frankly, looked like shit. And how about that? That I don't know if it's Broadway that's making JT Miller think he's some sort of actor, but that was fucking hilarious.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny that as bad as the Rangers looked, the Flames were the ones that were on the ass end of the back to back, right?
Yeah.
They're the ones that look like they had all the jump in the world and the energy and look like they wanted to be involved in that game. The Rangers couldn't be bothered.
Yeah, and sometimes
good on them,
funny how that works. Sometimes it's when a team gets slaughtered like the Flames did against the Leafs. Sometimes they don't want a couple days off to relax. Sometimes a little bit of travel, being frustrated on the plane or the bus or whatever, and getting right back on the ice early the next day, having a place to, take out all that frustration and all that pent up energy can be great. And I found that's what happened anyways. Along with the line changes, like that SharanGoaless line still looks a little rough. Even Coleman doesn't look at home. But the rest of those lines, man, very impressive.
I mean, Coleman is I would think out of sorts right now because his center isn't playing right now that he's been playing with him for a couple of years, right? So I mean, understandable for Coleman. I mean, obviously they've had a whole circle of players that have played the other wing throughout the season, but not having your main guy, I think, would cause you to be a little bit out of sorts. Not that Coleman's looked great this year, from the start, but I'll give him a bit of an excuse for those.
He's had a few decent stretches, but he definitely hasn't looked great much this year. He's definitely struggled a little bit here and there this year, but he hasn't looked like himself. But I think he's still been a pretty serviceable, third line winger, which is kind of what you want.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing with Coleman is we acquired Coleman, we signed Coleman when he was a bit of a younger guy, but also when the Flames were competitive and we needed a third line winger. Now the Flames have 18 third line wingers and aren't competitive.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, I always appreciate what he brings. I just would like him to bring more this year for sure,
yeah.
especially coming off the season he had last year, right? It's hard to take, and I'm sure he's not happy with what's happening either. He's a man of pride.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. Um, but those other lines, I thought I mean, you got to switch something up after the showing in Toronto,
Yeah.
and putting Kadri and the kids back together. As much as Kadri pisses me off a lot, I found that line looked strong. Converted once, looked strong, and there's a lot of net driving I find on that line,
Right.
and including the goal, right, where Kadri, it was almost who was I think it was Uyghur that shot that one, um, and Kadri comes in for the
Oh
rebound
yeah.
and comes flying in. I think it bounced off Zeri, and Kadri came flying in and scored it. But
Yeah.
just a bunch of havoc going on around the net. The more the Flames do that, the more they score. But they
Yeah.
seem to not want to do that a lot anymore. But
Yeah.
if
It's
they
definitely in
keep that
spurts.
line together and they can do that,
Mhm.
they'd be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right. They're not doing that much. They are, but in spurts, right? And it's never the same guy, or rarely the same guy. It's just okay. One guy. It's
Other than
his game
Huberdeau.
to. Yeah, it'd be this guy's turn to be the net front guy, and it's like they need to establish somebody like I don't understand why Klapka isn't just automatically assuming that role. He would be brilliant in that spot, right? It'd be difficult to move out of the way. He's obviously gonna take away a lot of the vision from the goaltender. And quite frankly, somebody trying to crack the lineup full time should be willing and able and ready to put his body on the line, like get in there and you know,
Do you
mix
not
it
think
up
he
and cause some
was
shit.
like?
Yeah,
The thing
in
is
in
he's not
in
on the
that
ice
game,
enough. What's that? Sorry.
in that game, yes, but there's been others where I'm finding that he's not like he's 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 trying to be a power forward, or you know what I mean, like I mean, don't get me wrong. It's actually kind of interesting to watch him streak towards the net with the puck because he's got a lot of power and he's got a lot of reach to get around people, and he's seems to be fairly decent at protecting the puck. But I think we should leave that up to somebody potentially with more skill, right?
Yeah, sure.
He's
Um, but do you think Rooney or Lomberg has more skill than Klapka?
no, no.
So what's the solution here?
Mm. Solution here is,
Do we move
I
Klapka up?
suppose we need to. Yeah, I say we need to find a way to get him off the fourth line. I think he'd be more useful. He can be like a, a bit of a a bit of a wrecking ball on the third line where he can use his body and his position as well as be the guy in front of the net. But I mean, like, I guess currently right now Coleman and Backlund are the third line. I don't necessarily want Klapka on that line either.
Well, Backlund's out, so it would
Yeah.
right now it's Farabee, SharanGoaless, and Coleman. Now,
Mm.
I wouldn't mind putting SharanGoaless down, but do you move Coleman over and put Klapka up? Because like the top six looked so good that
Mm.
last game. The Huberdeau, Frost, Coronado line right from puck drop looked amazing to me.
Yeah.
They did not convert 5-on-5, but they looked good. Coronado found soft spots, got several chances off of nice dishes. Frost got a couple of nice chances. They seem to be able to pick off each other's passes real nice and get good opportunities. The Kadri
Mm.
Pospisil and Zeri line is something that's proven and has been proven for well over a year now. So
Mm.
I wouldn't mess with that. So if you're looking at Farabee, SharanGoaless, and Coleman, what would
Yeah.
you do there? Would you move Coleman over the center and demote SharanGoaless, or would you maybe scratch SharanGoaless and call up Karens and put Karens at center and put Klapka up there? Or I don't
I
know.
mean,
Like
I
I'm
would.
just not seeing a way to anywhere where Klapka fits higher in the lineup. Is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, in all honesty, I mean, I would much rather see Karen's up opposed to um Hunt, right?
Yeah. Well, Hunt
That
didn't
that
play that
that
last game, but I agree with that.
yeah, he didn't play the last game, but I mean, I guess in that situation, then if Karen's is coming in, then Klapka's likely coming out, or
Rooney's.
he's sitting.
I would think if they're bringing in a center, they'd probably be sitting Rooney or SharanGoaless, who's been, as much as I like SharanGoaless as a player, he's been the worst Flame consistently this year out of all of the Flames.
Yeah. Well, do we sit Rooney then and put Sharangovich centering the fourth line and just kind of give him the message that this is it. Like you need
Unacceptable.
to start turning this. Yeah, you need to start turning this around, or you're going to be switching out with Rooney in the next game. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe.
Like do like a staggered, you know, repercussion sort of thing, right? Like obviously, putting him in the press box is, certainly an option. He's earned that right this year for sure. Like, at the beginning I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, right? Because he was coming off the injury and, trying to get used to some new line mates and blah blah blah, or get up to the speed of the game and all that fun stuff. But yeah, the last couple of weeks he has not looked good at all. Like he's been consistently one of the worst players on the ice, which is not it's not him, right? Like it's just I don't know where it's coming from. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I made this comparison the other day. I got a little bit of pushback from it, but here I go. Blah, blah, blah. Yegor SharanGoaless reminds me a lot of that year, a couple years ago, where the team refused to shut down Sean Monahan when he needed multiple hip surgeries and a wrist surgery, I believe, or it was either that or it was multiple wrist surgeries and a hip surgery.
Yeah.
And he looked like he was trying, but he just couldn't release a puck.
Yeah.
He couldn't properly. I don't know if you remember, but like they had him obviously at center because he's Sean Monahan.
Yeah.
He couldn't pivot. He couldn't win a faceoff. He couldn't like he was. It's hard because that Monahan was injured, and I don't know if SharanGoaless is injured, but he reminds me of that. It's not just a lack of confidence; it's a lack of ability to do the
That's
things that has made him successful in the past and made him a 30 whatever goal scorer last year. Like, this guy has skill. He's got an amazing shot, but he's not been able to get it off. And the few times he has got it off in the recent month or so, it's hit the post a lot.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, but
Yeah, his
I
lack
don't
of
know, man. Like,
execution is definitely coming to the forefront for sure.
can
I
you see
mean,
what I mean
I
about
mean,
that Monahan thing, though?
I do. I mean, I feel like SharanGoaless has more ability to move. Like Monahan was really beat up. I know the season you're talking about, and I felt bad for him the last couple of weeks. Is like there was no reason for him to be out there and putting his body on the line like he was.
Yeah.
And I think if I remember correctly, like, we weren't making the playoffs that year anyways.
I think we were, because I think that was the year that they shut him down right before the playoffs, and then we beat Dallas.
Mm,
Or no, that
I
was the
think
year
I'm thinking,
before. It was the year
yeah,
before.
like
Yeah.
yeah, because he was shut down 2 years in a row, or 1 year he should have been, and the next year he was, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. So yeah,
And so like I could never understand why they did that to the poor kid. I mean, obviously a lot of that came down to him as well, and his unwillingness to give up, right? And
there were
we all
stories of
applaud him
him not
for it,
being
right?
able to walk, right?
Right.
Like him, you know,
Yeah.
it reminds me, and I don't want to get too far into this because of, you know, obviously Matthew Tkachuk isn't a Flame and wasn't even a Flame when this happened, but the stories of a couple years ago in the playoffs, the year before the Panthers won the cup, where Kachuk was like had his brother dressing him because he couldn't do any. That's kind
Mm,
of like a similar story, right? You kind of
yeah.
hear that's kind of what you were hearing about Monahan that year, and like you're not hearing that about SharanGoaless this year, but he's not being made available for the media very often. I haven't heard nearly as much from him in the last few months as I have in the past, because
Right.
he's been a guy who's in the past, who we might not be able to understand, but really is hilarious.
Yeah, he gives good interviews for sure. I mean, maybe a
Absolutely.
lot of that has to do with him just outright saying no, right? I mean, who knows? Like, I can't see. I don't know. I think given the situation and where we are with the new leadership and everything like that, as far as Craig and whatnot, I don't see that so much as being a problem now. As far as him, potentially him being injured and playing through something, I mean, I don't understand why he hasn't been sat. I mean, I guess he has, but like regularly.
I
'Cause
think that's a little
it-
different. Like, I don't know how many players are doing that anymore. I mean, and I'm okay. Let me tell you what I'm saying. I don't think many players are being like, yeah, okay, shut me down, right? Like, even Sharangovich is probably like, if they're trying to shut him down, he's probably like, no, I can play, no, I can play, kind of like Monahan did, right?
yeah.
No, I can play, no, I can play, no, I can play. But I don't know.
Yeah,
Again, I don't know if he's injured. I have
yeah.
no idea.
Yeah,
But
it's
it
purely
seems like
speculation. But
something's not right.
if he is, okay, fine. If he's not, either way, management and coaching staff need to say, okay, look, either you improve,
We shut you
or
down.
if you're injured, tell us, give us an excuse, because if you're not injured and you're just this shitty this year, that's a concern, right? But
Absolutely.
also, does it pose the question that because of the way he was scoring last year, and his shots was, potentially some of this style of play just being glossed over, right? Because I know very early on, first couple of months last year, you were talking about how bad he was defensively and away from the puck and things like that, and then he kind of got on his heater for scoring, and so it may be a little bit of all was kind of forgotten because he's putting the puck in the net. potentially.
Well, the beginning of last year, he never got settled for the longest time as well. If you remember, Yegor
Yeah.
was kind of he was put into a position where he was the fourth line center, and then he was a third line winger, and then he was a second line center, and then he was back to the fourth line wing, and then he was the other fourth line wing. So, like,
Yeah.
that's not exactly the right positions. I'm not saying exactly the right positions, but you know what I mean. He was
Yeah.
put in
Yeah, it was bounced
every
around.
every different player he played with, every different line he played on. He'd play fucking 20 minutes one night and 2 minutes the next, well, 12 minutes the next night, and
Yeah.
12 minutes the next night, and then 15 minutes. Like he never had any consistency. And then they started giving him consistency, and then he started scoring. And he was also, I believe he was sick. Or no, that was Kuzmenko. Never mind. But yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it was Kuzmenko when he got here, wasn't it?
Yeah, but Yegor was thrown all over the lineup. And that's kind of what's happening this year, but I do think he's had more consistency with line mates this year than he did last year, and he just can't figure it out. And I
Mhm.
wasn't worried for the longest time. I thought he was going to figure it out, but I'm worried.
Yeah,
I don't think
I'm on the same page.
that contract isn't going to be bad. I don't think. Like first of all, it hasn't even kicked in yet, so I don't think it's
Mhm.
going to be a bad deal. Like it's 575 at this point. Like it might not be the best, but it's not going to be like Huberto in his first 2 years. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to be. And the Flames have so much
Yeah,
cap space, it doesn't really matter. I've heard a lot of people saying we should buy him out at the beginning of next season. Um,
like
no,
before his contract starts.
no, at the beginning of next season when his contract has started.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that still doesn't make any sense to me. But
No, you buy a contract out when your team is competitive and you need that cap space for something. If you
that's
don't
right.
need the cap space for something because you have $18 million in cap space, you don't fucking do that. It makes absolutely no sense. That he does not have a no move clause. You can just send him to the minors if you want. Like that's a better option than buying him out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I don't
Buying
even
them
think
out to
that's a
me
good option.
seems weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even
No,
think scratching him for a few games might be a good idea, but I don't think sending him down or buying him out or any of that stuff is a good option. I think finding out what the problem is, getting the problem
yeah,
fixed, and you know, if you need to scratch him, but like he should be scratched. If Backlund was playing, I feel like Igor would have been scratched the last couple games.
yeah, potentially, right? I mean, they brought Hunt up after Backlund went down, or was it Backlund going down, or Zari getting suspended? I can't remember. Anyways, because they already had
That
Klapka
was
up,
the
and
same
then they
game.
brought Hunt. Yeah, it was. Yeah, you're right. Same game.
Yeah.
So I mean, who knows where Sharangovich would be right now if those two games didn't happen with Zari, and if Backlund didn't go down. I really hope he's on his way back here soon. But I haven't heard
Backlund?
anything about him. Yeah,
Well, he's week to week. It hasn't even been a week, so
yeah,
um, I wouldn't guess. We might see him again in a couple weeks, but I'm not going to hold out too much hope because I know Steinberg's been saying for a while now that he's been battling something most of the season, and what happened in Vancouver isn't the same thing, but it's a good reason to get that fixed. So
all right. Yeah.
I wouldn't, maybe the last couple games or something, but I don't think Backlund's gonna be back until next year. That's my opinion.
That's really unfortunate. But I mean,
Yeah.
he still has one more year in contract. and at a really reasonable rate. So
Yeah.
I mean, and let's be honest. I mean, if they're not going to show well and get make themselves look like they're going to be a playoff team, there's no sense in limping into a wild card spot or just missing it. So I mean, if not having Backlund there drops us or loses 4 points for us between now and then and gets us into that bottom 10 pick, great. I'm not going to worry about it. We're not in a position where I expect great things as far as playoffs or anything, so I'm not that worried about it.
I could
I'd
see
much
Wolf
rather take that pick.
stealing 2 games, but I don't see
Yeah.
the Flames winning a series, honestly. So the Flames have
No,
72 points, and Detroit, who's currently holding the 10th highest lottery odds or 10th lowest lottery odds spot, has 70 points. So we're only 3 points out of a top 10 pick, and we are. Let's go to wild card here. What, 2 points out of a wild card spot? Yeah.
Mhm.
So really, it could go any which way, and it could go the worst way too, which is just missing and also not getting a top 10 pick. So
Yeah.
the Flames are doing
Yeah,
Flames.
exactly, right? Yeah, like even had we won against Vancouver in regulation like we should have, you know, we would still be 1 point out of a wild card spot because St. Louis would be in that spot right now.
Yeah, and St. Louis was like way out of it just a couple weeks ago. So, and Utah is
Yeah.
only 2 points behind us too, and fuck, we're like not even that far ahead of Anaheim at this point. Although they're not going to catch us, I don't think. But
I mean, yeah, there's not a lot of games left to be picking up 7 points, but
yeah,
I mean, you never know. I mean, if they did, great. At this stage, to be honest, like I'm. Hey, basketball fans, are you ready to win real money? Check out Pick Six from DraftKings. When it comes to basketball payouts, DraftKings Pick Six dunks on its rivals, including Prize Picks. Just select 2 or more players and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat, like points, rebounds, three-pointers, and more. Pick Six is available in most states, including California, Texas, Georgia, Missouri, and more. Don't settle for a smaller payout. Switch to Pick Six and cash in your basketball knowledge. New players get $50 in Pick Six credits instantly on just a $5 entry. Download the DraftKings Pick Six app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to play $5, get $50 in Pick Six credits. Better payouts, bigger wins. Only with Pick Six from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
And you talked about Wolf stealing games, right? A couple of games potentially between now and the end of the season.
yeah,
I just want to bring this up, and it's something I didn't really put a lot of thought into just based on kind of Vladar this season. But Darren Haynes threw up on X there. Says Dan Vladar has quietly gone 3-1-1 with a 197 goals against average and a 929 save percentage over his last 5 starts. Right, so all 5 starts were on the road. 2 wins were on the back end of back-to-backs. 1 win was over the league best Capitals. Overtime loss was Dallas, and the 1 loss was against the reigning Cup champs Panthers.
yeah, without a doubt, Vladar. I think over his last 5 starts, I think Vladar has played his best hockey as a Flame, and I don't think it's even close. I think his first season, he played some good hockey, but I think a lot of that was covered over by the Tanev, Hannafin, Anderson, you know, they played really well. Even Gabranson and Zadorov that year were so good together in a third pair role that I think that Vladar wasn't even really that great that year, but his numbers were better. But this past few games of his has been, like I said, the best of his Flames tenure.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we know that he was suffering from that hip issue last year. So, I mean, clearly that's going to affect a goaltender. Speaking of players
100%.
that should have been shut down early. Jeez.
And I heard again, I've mentioned this guy on the podcast a few times, but Kevin Woodley in the off season was talking about that surgery that Vladar had. Apparently it's a surgery that lots of goalies have. And and apparently it goes one of two ways. Either your career's pretty much over or you're way better than you ever were as far as your hips are concerned.
Nice.
It's either you feel better than you've ever felt or you're done. And he said the vast majority have been way better. So that's why I was a little bit optimistic about it, but I wasn't as optimistic as he's shown in his last 5 games because I never really thought Vladar had that in him. And I know this might sound a little ridiculous, but I think Wolf has had a lot to do with that because Vladar has been goalies feed off each other. Like even when Vladar and Markstrom were playing together, Vladar spent a lot of time talking about how Jacob Markstrom taught him a lot. And even though Dan Vladar is older than Wolf, I think that he's, and I even think maybe there's a little bit of give and take from both of them, because I find Vladar specifically has started looking around screens a lot better and tracking the puck a little bit better and anticipating plays better than he ever has. And at the same time, Wolf has not been like last year. He made himself smaller than he is. He hasn't been doing that this year, and I kind of wonder if that's Vladar kind of helping Wolf, obviously not physically grow, but how to not make himself look smaller than he is by crouching too much or whatever what he was doing last year, which was crouching too much. And I think Vladar has taken a lot from Wolf with the puck tracking and the ability to screens.
Yeah, it's interesting. The last few games, Vladar is definitely tracking the puck a lot better than he ever has. That being said, I've also noticed that Wolf in the last couple of games is not tracking the puck as well as he has in the past, or doesn't appear to be. I've noticed many times over the last 2-3 games where he's just completely lost sight of the puck, doesn't know where it is,
which
and
is
it's kind of
weird
had
for
to
him.
scramble to recover. Yeah, it's totally. It's definitely weird. What's that? I just think it's uncharacteristic for him.
I agree. Do you think that might be not that the Flames' defensive coverage has been great for most of the year, but do you think that might be even more of a lack of defensive coverage? I've noticed like Ball is still pretty on it, but they've been sitting Pahal for Miramonov and even like Uyghur and Anderson seem to not be as defensively sound as they have been the rest of the year. Also, it might be a competition thing. We went through that gauntlet run and haven't really played that many bad teams since, so it could be that as well. But what do you think on that? Do you think it could be a little bit of those things, or do you think it's just Wolf getting tired?
I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say Wolf getting tired. I think collectively, defensively, the team has not been up to par for a while, right? I There's been a lot more traffic in front of Wolf these days. For whatever reason, you're right. Uyghur, I won't say has struggled, but he certainly hasn't looked as good as he did last year.
I don't
He's
think
not
he's
having the
struggled.
same year.
I don't think he's
Yeah,
struggled either, but don't think he's as good right now over the past few games as he has been
yeah,
for the rest of the year,
yeah,
and especially last year.
yeah, absolutely. And Anderson's just been a roller coaster, right? Up and down, offensively, defensively. He's all over the map right now. Like there's zero consistency from number 4 right now, and
No,
it's
I agree.
and it's this is the guy that many people a year ago wanted to be the captain. Not saying that he's not captain material, but just based on his play on the ice, the last while, I don't know. I don't know, man. Like I'm
Personality-wise,
so on the
absolutely.
fence. 100%. Yeah, personality wise, for sure. I mean, he's a great locker room guy, but we're
Yeah,
trying to build a winner here, and I'm almost to the point where I don't care if we re-sign him or let him go. I didn't
trade him.
think I would be in this mindset, but I mean, obviously, trade him would be the ideal, right? But
Or we won't be
I
letting
mean,
him go until he's still got a year
yeah,
left of this deal, right?
that's
So
right. Yeah,
yeah, I can't see Craig Conroy going out there and not trading him if he's not going to resign.
right.
I don't think just letting Anderson go is even slightly in the cards, like at all.
Yeah, no, I definitely worded that incorrectly. I didn't
Oh,
think he
okay.
was going to walk away, but
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, like, just letting him go to another team is what
Yeah.
I was meaning there. And like last year, even though he struggled, I was definitely not in the trade Anderson camp, but I'm becoming in the is what it is camp, and that's I don't want to be there with him because he's a stellar guy. I really like his personality. I like what he brings when his game is on.
Yeah.
But I tell you, those games have just been so few and far between this year. It's been frustrating.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Anderson, and when, like you said, when he's on, he's borderline and number one when he's on.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say he's a number one, but he's like a really, really, really good number two when he's on. Um,
Yeah.
but you're right, he's been wildly inconsistent, has some pretty rough plays. Um, no, he has the ability to score some pretty flashy goals and has the ability to drive play, but he doesn't seem to want to drive play. I don't know what
Yeah.
it is. Obviously, he wants to, but he doesn't seem to maybe know that he can because he can.
Right.
We've seen it, but
Yeah. Yeah.
he
Many times.
he just seems to be like, when he has the chance to have one of those dominating shifts, he'll, instead of carrying the puck around the zone like he's actually relatively good at, he'll make a dumb pass.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
it's frustrating. And I think I've been saying this for a while now. I'm a fan of the guy, and I'd have no problem if they re-sign him, but I'd also have no problem, like, obviously depending on the number, but I'd also have no problem if they traded him. I think
Mhm.
that there's if you re-sign Anderson, you're getting a few really good years out of it, and if you trade him, you're getting a few really good assets out of it. I don't think it's like if you re-sign him, he's going to be terrible the whole time. And I don't think it's if you trade him, you're not getting anything worth it. I think either way, I'm fine. Know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there's
Yeah.
positives to both things and negatives to both things.
Yeah, that's right. And it's an anomaly when it comes to him, right? Because he had quite a few years of just progressively getting better and better and better and better, and then all of a sudden, and you can put it up right in the timeline of when he got hit by that car in Detroit, and it's been steady decline or just erratic ever since, right?
I've said that before that it kind of started then, and it did. Like the massive change in play
Decline.
started
Mhm.
around that time, but I also think that losing Giordano, who was his partner for many years, and then having and like I'm not a hockey player. I don't know what, even if I was, I wouldn't know what's going on inside their brains. But I feel like having that year where they dominated the regular season and went into Dallas and beat the Stars in 7 games in overtime,
Mhm.
and then over the next year, the entire team fucking just disappeared in front of them. I
Sure.
think that and like as much as we like Kevin Ball and we like Joel Hanley, you know, that's and like I'm not a Noah Hannafin fan, but Noah Hannafin, Mark Giordano, those guys are just better. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
I
get
really
what you're
like
coming
Kevin
from
Ball.
for sure. Yeah. I mean, I myself would rather have Ball or Pahal over Hannafin, but that's just me. I never liked Hannafin as a defender, but that's just
Yeah.
my sole opinion.
I'd
I
also
won't
rather
I won't
have
drag the whole show
Pahal.
down with my own opinion.
Yeah. Well, you should. That's kind of the point of the whole thing. Uh, I do think that we should stop sitting Pahal.
Mhm.
The guy's
I agree.
in good defensive position. You can say he makes defensive gaffes or whatever, but have you actually ever watched Miramonov?
Right. Yeah, the fact that they're sitting him for Miramonov is just fucking ridiculous.
And even Bean is
Like,
miles ahead of Miramonov, but I'd rather have Pahal than either of them. And
yeah,
honestly,
agreed.
probably Hanley, even though Hanley's been really good this year, I'd probably rather have Pahal in there than Joel Hanley too.
Yeah, I agree. Hanley has, especially the last couple of weeks, looked pretty good. Um, I don't know that it's something that I think moving forward into next year, whatever, I don't see Hanley being more than a 6-7.
No, and you know what? I think Joel Hanley, you know, I can't see him. Yeah, like he's a 6-7. I can't see him being a top 4 defender for any sort of solid, really good team. Like I
No,
like him.
definitely not.
He seems like he's pretty good on the ice, especially with Uyghur. But
Mhm.
I'm not sure if I'd keep like you can get Joel Hanley. It's funny because you could get
Mhm.
Joel Hanley on waivers 17 times a year. You could get Joel
Yeah,
Hanley in free agency for league minimum or just over league minimum. Like there's 20 of him in free
yeah,
agency every year. I wouldn't worry. Like he's good, but whatever, you know. And I also
exactly.
think that I think that I don't know what his contract is like. I don't is this his
Hanley?
last year?
Yeah, yeah, it's just a 1 year. It's 7,875. He's a
Yeah.
UFA
Okay.
next year.
So
So it's
if
like,
they decided to bring Hanley back, if they could find a way to get rid of Miromanov, because I know he's signed for longer, which is just ridiculous. But
mhm.
if they could get Hanley back as a 6-7 for one specific reason, get Zane Perek up and cycle Zane Perek in for some games and Hanley in for other games.
Sure.
And
I mean,
only say that because Zane Perek can't play in the AHL next season, which is a joke.
Yeah.
And he's clearly he's breaking records. He's broken records in 2 straight years in the OHL. He's done. He doesn't need to do that shit anymore. So it's either the NHL or Europe or the OHL. I can't see them sending him to Europe. So you got to bring him up. You got to play him for 40, 50 games. 30, 40 games.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, you let Hanley walk, in my opinion. He's 33 years old. He doesn't fit with the core age bracket that we want with this club right now, in my opinion.
No, and I definitely agree with that. But
you know,
if you can get him for 1 year, I see no harm.
Yeah, no, and that's fair, I guess. I don't see why we would have somebody like that on the team when we have that needs a place to be.
Yeah. Now, I want to get your opinion on this, and what I was saying isn't exactly this, but I've heard this actually been thrown around on the radio a little bit. You know what Anaheim did with Leo Carlson last year? You remember that? Literally load management, where they had a plan where he'd play these games and wouldn't play those games from the start of the season, and they just stuck to that.
Yeah.
I've heard on the radio people throwing that around with Zane Perek because apparently people don't think he's going to be ready for full-time NHL as far as the schedule is concerned. But if you load manage him, then he might be. I'm not sure if I'm in for that, but what do you think?
I don't think it's a bad idea, because I would say, I mean, that's a hell of a jump, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that's like you're skipping a step, and so there's
a fucking huge step.
Yeah. And so I wouldn't have an issue with that at all. Like if we can get him in for like 45 games, sweet,
Mm-hmm.
For next year. And then obviously, moving forward after that, you see what he can do with those 45 games, and then you move forward with that, and obviously increase, the following year drastically, try and get him into the 82 if you can.
Yeah.
But I think next year, I think that would be very smart. Still keep him with the club, right? Obviously, and he's still doing practice and everything like that. But and then that's where, in my opinion, that's where you have like a with Jake Bean. He still has another year, so we keep him on board. And like seriously, like Miromanov can just fuck right off. Like he can.
There's no upside at all.
He can get the popcorn for whoever's sitting that game. Like as far as like that's it. That's your job for next year.
Yeah.
Like don't bother bringing your skates.
Sit in the nosebleeds, but not in the press box.
Right. Yeah. This is reserved for people that have a chance to play next game.
He can sit in the nosebleeds at the Saddle Dome by himself when the team is playing in the East.
Right. I would much rather have him punching my ticket on my way into the dome than watch him on the ice.
That'd be kind of weird. You'd be looking up at the guy with the crazy eye like that. Like,
yeah. I mean, it's no different than the guy doing it now. No, I'm kidding.
That's fair.
I do kid. I mean, I know a lot of people that work at the dome, and I don't want to insult them like that. So,
I mean, I'm not trying to insult Miromanov.
I'm not either, but it just he just doesn't
not
fit. Like
an NHL caliber player, so it's time to not have him on the team anymore. in my opinion. Now, again, I wouldn't buy him out, but you got Barry, Tenority, Hanley, and whoever else leaving. You've got possibly Brstevich coming up. I think Poirier is a RFA. I'm not sure though. Like you could put Miramonov on in the AHL and he could just play there. I'd be okay with that.
Mhm.
We're gonna
Yeah.
need AHL defensemen. No, you might have Solovyov or Kuznetsov or both coming up as well, right? Like you never know. Solovyov seems to be
Yeah.
doing to be taking to Alberta pretty good.
So far. Yeah, we got Poirier and Kuznetsov are both RFAs next year, along with Sam Morton and good old Rory Cairns.
Yeah.
And Clark Bishop is a UFA.
Yeah.
And you're right, Tenorti, yeah, whatever is UFA, and
And Barry's gone. You're gonna need to have somebody there. I don't think we
sure.
have anybody who's AHL eligible coming up from. I mean, maybe Eric Jameson, but like you don't really have anybody who's as much as I say, Mirmanov's not an NHL level player. I'm sure if you put him in the AHL, he'd rip it up.
Yeah. Well, and
Or at
even
least
even
be
if
in
you
the top 20% kind of guy,
yeah,
right?
even if you're struggling to find somebody to bring up to that position at the moment, you can sign a guy for that.
Yeah.
Like there's still people in the NHL trying to find jobs, whatever, for a year until we get somebody else ready to come up.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Anyways, I just wanted to put it out there with Perek specifically because
Mhm.
I've heard a lot about this load management thing. I just want to go
Yeah.
back to that for a second. I don't think the load management is a good idea where they have a set schedule where whether he's playing well or he's not playing well, he still sits that game. I think
Yeah.
I think if he starts struggling, you can sit him for a week. That's fine. But if you have a guy who's not struggling and then you sit him just because that's a scheduled day off, that's stupid. And I think that really
Yeah.
negatively affected Leo Carlson last year. I think it did.
Yeah, I mean, there's a case to be made for doing it that way. At least then you're not pulling the kid aside saying, you've been dog shits, or obviously you're not going to say that, but you've been dog shit,
You
so
might,
you won't be playing for a couple of games, or
if
or
you're Daryl
maybe
Sutter, you'll
maybe
just say you can go take a shit.
yeah. I mean, who doesn't do that? Um, but I mean, like in all honesty, you want winners in there anyways. That if they hear something like, hey, you didn't have a very good game, you're going to sit a game. It's, hopefully that would motivate them to try a bit harder for the next. I mean, who knows, right?
Mhm.
But I mean, I understand the reason for doing it. I don't necessarily agree with doing it that way. I'm a merit-based person. I always have been.
Me
So
too.
if they're on a roll and on a heater, fucking right, you give them that ice time, right? You reward him with that ice time. If he's starting to slow down and create mistakes and causing goals against and shit like that, then absolutely. Then hey, you know what? I think it's time you took a couple of days off there, catch your breath, and let's go over some video and see where we're breaking down a bit and figure it out. I think that would be the best way for his development. That's what I mean by management on that, not necessarily a set schedule, but limited. Basically, I don't think he's going to be good for 82 years or 82. Yeah, I don't think he'll be good for 82 years, if you
I
can
don't
believe
either.
that. Yeah, or 82 games next year. Yeah, we'll go
Yeah.
with that instead. It's I think that would be way too many games, just given the jump in the level of play and obviously in the amount of games. I think that'd be too much for him.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that. But definitely think that you can't put him back in the OHL. Like
I don't think so.
unless you play him for 20 games and he is terrible in all of them,
Mhm.
then you can send him down to the O. But
Mm.
first
I
of
don't
all, I
think
don't
there's a
think that's
chance
going
of
to happen.
that. Yeah.
What's that? Yeah.
I
But
don't
yeah,
think there's a chance that happens. So yeah.
especially for a team that's starving for offense. And like, I don't care who the fuck we sign next year or who we draft next year. We're still going to be starving for offense next year. And that
Yeah.
is, I mean, we've needed a power play quarterback since before Giordano left. So
Yeah.
let's give this kid a chance because he's got power play quarterback written all over him, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. We've kind of assigned that role to a couple of defenders just based on the fact that they're better than the rest of the Flames defenders at putting the
You're
puck in the
Anderson?
net. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like, but they're not, by no means are they, power play specialists or quarterbacks, right?
Yeah, they're
I was
not.
told
They're,
that that's what we were getting in Barry, but clearly that's not the case.
I mean, I saw maybe not elite, but I saw really good puck movement from him, but I didn't see
Yeah.
enough of it to be like it's okay that he's absolutely shit defensively
Right.
and can't really skate that well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He
Well, and
is.
that's,
He is
I mean,
getting.
and he's only 33, right? Like he's the same age as Hanley, and I'm saying, don't re-sign Hanley because of his age. Not that 33 is old, but it just doesn't fit with our model, right?
I agree, but the other thing is Hanley serves an entirely different purpose.
Oh,
And
yeah,
like,
he actually plays defense, right?
yeah, exactly, right?
Hmm.
And when I'm looking for a 6'7", I'm looking for a guy who you can bring in and know that he's not going to be a defensive liability.
Right.
A Michael Stone or a Joel Hanley or
It's
a
it's it's funny. I was actually going to reference Michael Stone as well, right? Somebody you can have in the press box for 7 games, and then you throw him in, and he basically goes in like he didn't skip a beat.
you can buy him out
You know?
and then you can sign him again like 3 weeks later and it's all good.
Yeah. Or in Stone's case, you don't play him for a month, and you put him in, and he's a fucking defensive genius and his highlight reel scoring master, right? Like,
Should have been on power play 1. Should have been
yeah,
on power.
and should have played the whole season.
He
But
probably should have played
I digress.
20 minutes a night for 82 games.
Yeah, you imagine.
25
I think
minutes.
he would have shut himself down after a month of that.
Just eat chips until he got a blood clot. Oh, that's a terrible, terrible joke.
Wow, why would you do that? You're a horrible person, by the way. Jeez.
If the shoe fits, which it does.
Holy. Oh, poor Mike. Poor Mike.
I wonder if he'd laugh at that or if he'd punch me in the face.
Probably punch you in the teeth. And I mean, when I saw him at Barbecues Galore last year, I mean, he was looking pretty fit. I think he would take your ass out.
Oh, he guaranteed he'd take my ass out. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. If
for
he
a
wasn't
nice
such a
steak
nice guy.
dinner because I made such a quality joke.
Heyo. Wow. Off
Anyways,
the rails. How many episodes are we gonna do in a row where we just go off the rails? Like, is
hey
that
man,
just
it's
our new
fun.
thing now?
It's fun.
Yeah.
You want to get into the officiating thing we were going to talk about, or can that wait till next episode, or what?
I mean, I don't know if this audience is ready for the officiating discussion, because I mean it's heavy as shit.
It's almost as heavy as a blood clot. Never mind.
No.
Okay.
No.
Anyways, if you enjoyed what you've heard for at least the first like 55 minutes of this podcast, make sure you check us out on YouTube, Spotify, all that type of stuff. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, all that good stuff. Make sure you check us out at ArmChair GM _pod on X and feel free to message me on the ArmChair GM podcast Reddit account and Facebook, all that stuff. We're pretty much everywhere except for Instagram. So make sure you do all that stuff. And yeah, go Flames, go.
Go Flames. And if you're listening on audio format, jump over to YouTube and give us a follow there. You'd be surprised with how good looking Dylan is. Come over and have a look. I promise
maybe
you'll
you'll
be
just laugh.
disappointed. Or that. That being said, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the ArmChair GM podcast. Cheers. Go Flames.